Hello and welcome back to the AGRIMINDS podcast. I'm Kacee Bohle, and today I've got guest Kody Hanner with me, and we're going to kind of be talking about something a little different today. Yes, homesteading, yes, agriculture, but also one of my other favorite topics, which is homeschooling, and Kody is going to be tying those two things together for us. Welcome to the AGRIMINDS podcast.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here today.
Yes, me too. If people don't know who you are, would you mind sharing a little background? Where are you from? What do you do? Give us all the detail.
I'm Kody Hanner. I have the Homestead Education. My husband and I have a 40-acre homestead in North Idaho where we primarily raise hogs. We raise about 350 hogs a year, which I'm sure a lot of your listeners are like, that's what I do in an afternoon, but for homestead pigs, that's a lot. I grew up in California. I was an ag major. And when my husband and I met, we wanted something different in life. And we started seeking that out. We started in Oregon, and then we had a really life-changing experience that brought me to where we are today.
Ooh, I am really excited to dive into that. So how this is kind of funny how this happened. So when I first started looking into homeschooling, which was three-ish years ago, I started looking on YouTube. I was looking for different curriculum reviews and things like that. And I actually got connected with Jamie at Simply Living It. I don't know if you know her personally, but she recommended your curriculum. And I thought at the time it was for like middle school, high schoolers. And so I was like, that'd be
Mhm.
cool. I screenshotted it and then I never thought about it again because I'm like, we'll talk about it when I don't have a second grader, right? And so,
Right?
interestingly enough, though, you came up again, like just on like an ad or I don't know, somebody posted about you or something. And I was like, man, this is really cool. And then I realized you do so much more than middle school and high school stuff. And then I was like, well, does it make sense for me to purchase a curriculum about the stuff I grew up knowing, right? Like I grew up on a farm. We corn and soybeans. My mom has grown a garden since the day I can remember, right? Like, does it make sense for me to purchase a curriculum that talks about this stuff when I probably know majority of the things in there. And I went and I looked at some of your stuff online and I was like, turns out there's a lot of stuff I don't know. And the way to teach it to the next generation, I was like, I didn't go to school to be a teacher. I don't, I don't
Well,
say
neither did
I'm
I,
a
but
teacher. Yeah. I mean, I do teach my child, but I don't think that I have all of the tips and tricks that people who have an education background have. But I just thought it was super fascinating. And I would love to learn just a little bit more about how you guys got into one, homesteading, why you decided to write a curriculum, and just share a little bit about the journey, the mindset of getting to that point.
I think it's really funny that on your end, you're like, wow, this is only for high schoolers. So, I'll circle back. So I usually have it the other way around because there are so many options for, teaching like farm school. And I use that with quotations because a lot of times you get a curriculum and this is a farming curriculum. And then it's just, we're going to count the sheep, and which is cute. And I love it. And it does and definitely engage children because all children love farm animals, but it's not a like farming or agriculture type curriculum. So when I created this, I did create it for little kids, but my focus has always been at the high school because there's nothing out there for high school students on this. So yeah, I mentioned that we had a really life-changing experience. I had been an ag major. I majored in animal science. My focus was in food safety. I worked in a couple of large food plants down in California. I ended up actually quitting doing that for a little bit because our local food plant or slaughter plant had been shut down, and the local farmers were just like floundering because they had to go through another plant. They had to have food safety plans in place for what they were doing. They were looking at opening a plant in our county, and they're like, we don't have anybody who even knows how to like get this off the ground. And so I ended up quitting my job and I started a consulting business. because I was like, I can actually help these people and these are my people. So I started doing that, and a lot of times I worked in trade for bacon and gas money and all sorts of stuff, but I knew that that was what was best. Through all that, I ended up getting headhunted to another, large plant, and I decided to go ahead and take it because I'd kinda settled some things there. I made some templates for people and took off, and it was the best decision I ever made because I met my husband, after moving 3 hours away to this new place. And him and I, after a year, decided to move to Oregon to kinda start this new life. He had grown up, in a small town in Oregon, so we moved there. We were a yours, mine, and ours family, and we're kinda, like, starting fresh. We decided I was gonna be a stay-at-home mom to really support our kids through their transition of, new parents and new schools and all that stuff. And a year and a half after we got married, at this point, we have a new baby, and we're just, blissful, and the kids are doing great, and um, we're really loving our lives, and my husband started having really bad heartburn, and so he's a veteran, so we went go to the VA doctors, and they're kinda, like, throwing a bunch of medicines at him, and it just wasn't something wasn't right, and so we decided to take it further. They did a bunch of scans and a bunch of lab work, and they're like, "We just want you to see this specialist over in Portland." They did a couple more tests. We still didn't really know what they were doing. They just kinda were like, "Well, we wanna see, like, this doesn't make sense, so we wanna see what this is," and I'm a pretty I feel like I'm pretty educated, and nothing was, like, clicking as to what they were digging for, and I'm standing there changing my son's diaper on, like, the little bed in the room, and the doctor, he walks in and he's like, "Well, looks like you're a little bit cirrhotic. Hold on, I got a phone call, I gotta go." And we just, like, stood there and looked at each other like, "What does cirrhotic?" Like, I mean, we knew what cirrhotic meant. My dad had just died from liver cirrhosis the year before that. But we're like, "What's a little bit cirrhotic?" Like, how are you just a little bit? Like, what is the and, I mean, he was probably 45 minutes where I'm trying to Google, like, what he means, and he comes back in and basically tells us my husband has end-stage liver disease, may only have a year left to go ahead and get his affairs in order, even though he's obviously very what they call compensated at the moment, which is that he doesn't show a whole lot of symptoms, but that they see it progressing really fast because he was only 33, and to have it progressed at that point, um, that he should probably get his affairs in order. And I mean, we're just standing there staring at him, and he goes, "So, if you're still alive in 6 months, why don't you come back and we'll scan you to see if you have liver cancer?" Uh, I don't even know what to do. I mean, we drove, like, the almost 4 hours home just, like, shell-shocked.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I mean, and it was actually really frustrating. We were driving over the mountains from, like, the Portland side to where we lived out in the middle of nowhere, and so there's no service the whole time. So we can't Google. We don't even know what to say to each other. I mean, at one point, my husband just goes, "You didn't sign up for this. If you wanna go, you can." I'm just like, "Stop the car, like, we're having this conversation face to face." So that was literally the, like, most life-changing moment I've ever had in my life. After probably, like, 20 sobbing phone calls to the VA hospital trying to get someone to give us any information, like, anything at all. Like, are there clinical trials? Are there medication? There would be, like, little tidbits here and there, like, "Well, have you heard of the liver diet?" "Well, no, you're supposed to tell me about the liver diet." Like, this is I was so frustrated. I turned to Facebook, and there's all these pages where basically tells you that, like, the things you're allowed to eat are I mean, my husband was like, "No, that I'm not eating that, that's disgusting." And basically, it was just people trying to tell you to eat healthier, but the way we've been told to eat healthier for years is I mean, that's a whole 'nother finally, the fellow got back on the phone with me, and he goes, "Well, we heard if you live a healthier lifestyle, it might improve the quality of life that he has left." I have something. I will take it. I will take all of it. Like, I was just desperate for anything. So I went down, like, the biggest rabbit trail I mean, I was researching, I had books, I had appliances, and I'd always, like, seen myself as, like, a home cooker, we were hunters, we had a garden. I was like, "Yeah, I got this, like, we can." I mean, we home cook, like, no, no, like, I had to take this back, like, as many steps as possible. I mean, all the way back to, like, for example, I always use this one because it's such a process. We started raising our own chickens not for eggs, but to butcher. But I had to look at where I was ordering my chicks because I didn't want them to be vaccinated. Then I had to, feed them non-GMO, like, organic feed, and then, when I butcher them, 'em, I'm trying to not use any chemicals in my kitchen. Then I'm making, homemade broth. I'm one of those weird people that, yes, we're homesteaders, but I grew up in commercial ag, and I don't believe in organic. But to be able to purchase the things that I felt like were the best, I was having to go with, like, organic carrots and organic, and I'm like, "We have to be able to grow all this stuff because we can't afford to buy this for a family of 7." And learning how to, like, can everything so that we can actually have convenience meals because we're also a 4-H family and our kids wrestle and play baseball and we love to hunt. We were always in the woods, and I needed to be able to have meals that I could just come home and throw together. So I was learning how to pressure can, and I already knew how to water bath can sort of, but I mean sort of. I mean, it was just this whole new world, and I always make sure I tell this part really fast because that was the whirlwind that I was feeling. And at that point, my husband and I decided that we cannot grow everything we need to grow in the frozen sandbox that the high desert in Oregon is. I mean, my entire garden froze opening day of hunting season, which is August 26th. I felt like there was just no hope. And so we started looking in Idaho. We had some friends up here and we're like, well, we had came to visit them and we're like, we really love the area. We don't really know how much we can grow here. And we started traveling around and we found this absolutely wonderful banana belt where we're like a zone 7 growing all the way at the Canadian border. Like, you would not expect that.
Wait, hang on. Banana? Like,
So
definitely growing bananas up there?
no, they call it a banana belt because the temperature, it stabilizes throughout the year, and we have a longer growing season than
Oh,
everyone
I'm
around
just like,
us.
how do I not know about this? Like,
You know what? And that's the, like, really cool thing about agriculture is you do learn all these things that you don't expect because we actually do live above the largest hop field in the world. It's 72,000 acres.
whoa.
Yes, like, I look out my window right now, and there's this huge valley full of cattle and hops.
Yeah, that's so fascinating to me. I grew up with corn and soybeans, and
Mhm.
anything other than that, I'm like, "Oh my gosh," like, I know a little about wheat and sorghum, but other than that, it's like, they didn't grow that where I live, like, I didn't even know, like yeah, anyway, I the first time I saw a hops plant, I was like, "What's it doing up there?" Like, I had no
Right?
idea that it grew on a trellis. Um so anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead. The banana
No,
belts.
it's fine. It really helped our homesteading, doing everything natural journey because we didn't have any other option. So we moved to this farm and I'm like, "Okay, we have to figure out how to grow all of our own food." And I was an ag major, so that's gonna be the easiest thing in the world. No. It is not. Because when you grow up on a cattle ranch and then major in commercial ag, that does not translate to all the traditional skills and being able to raise multiple animals and crops all at the same time. I remember my husband really wanted to do a milk cow right off the bat. And he was so depressed at the time, like, he didn't wanna eat anything, he was ready to just roll over and die kind of, like, feeling, and I was like, "If we only have a year left, we're making the best of it by enjoying this wonderful farm together," and, like, we had planned on having another baby, and he didn't wanna have another baby because he's gonna die, and so I'm, like, mourning him, I'm mourning this child we were gonna have, and when he was excited to get a milk cow, I was like, "Then let's do it, like, whatever makes you happy right now. We built a little wood stanchion to milk her. And then literally he's like, okay, well, you're the farm girl. What do we do with her? I don't know.
Milker.
He's like, well, you worked on, right? He's like, well, he's like, you used to work in the dairy unit at your college. I'm like, we were milking 100 cows. I know how to sanitize equipment. I do not know how to handle a dairy cow. And that was kind of the first step in our journey to the homestead education. I started looking for books. I started looking for research online. And at the time, there was one book on keeping the family cow, and it was called Keeping the Family Cow. Wonderful book, but I think it was written in like the 70s or something. And it was very helpful. I've actually had my kids read it since then. But even still with the whole homestead movement, I think there's maybe only I actually don't know of any other raising like a single family cow books. I know of quite a few on how to make like raw milk cheeses and things like that, but I was really surprised on the lack of literature there was on something that humans have been doing for all of eternity. Well, during this time, I had decided to homeschool our kids because we're going to spend all our time together, you know? And I'm spending all this time like deep dive researching. I mean, I'm pulling up books and almanacs and all sorts of stuff on like the Library of Congress trying to find older literature because everything there was hardly anything period, but everything that was modern was not the practices we could do at the time. And I mean, even as someone who was a food safety specialist, this felt wrong in a lot of ways sometimes because I'm having to like balance with him, keeping him from getting sick in any way while also making sure that he has all the good bacteria and things like that that he needs in his body. I'm also trying to homeschool these kids who are looking to me like, what do we do? We've never been homeschooled before. And so I'm trying to be that homeschool mom that does all the things where we get our 8 hours of school and our math and our English and history and all the pieces.
Mhm.
And I realized that this wasn't working for us. And so my thought was there's a curriculum out there for everything. I will buy an agriculture science curriculum and using my knowledge and the research I'm doing now, we'll use the agriculture science as a framework. Like you were kind of saying before, like I grew up on a farm. Why do I need a curriculum? I needed a curriculum. I needed something that could give me a framework for the kids, something I could hand over to them and say, do your work, but then also say, hey, let's dive deeper into that or let's go do that hands on. And there were no ag curriculums out there, like big fat zero. And, a lot of people that I say that to, they're like, what do you mean? There's, every single school teaches agriculture and there's 4-H and there's college textbooks. Yes, there are. But I had my college textbooks. I didn't have time to translate that for my 7-year-olds to do. I didn't have time to translate an entire chapter on genetics, just trying to explain to my kids why I need to keep the bull in a separate pen because of when we want to breed and that we want to make sure our calves are all A2A2, which is a protein casein that people with milk that doesn't upset people's stomachs as bad, which makes our milk more profitable and better for my husband. So just trying to have these quick conversations doesn't translate well out of a advanced reproductive anatomy book.
Mhm.
As far as high schools, most of them don't just have a textbook that you can just pick up and use. And 4-H curriculums are designed for small groups, which is fun when we want a project, but again, doesn't translate to everyday life. And all of these are great resources. I'm not knocking any of them. I'm trying to like use my head to block my bookcases, but that is all like research stuff behind me. Yeah. Because I do feel like there's no one resource that's going to do it all. So I ended up just starting to create lessons for my kids. And we would do it, for example, with the milk cow. What kind of cow do we have? How do we work the equipment? My boys learned, working small engines with the pumps and stuff. Then they learned how, why it's important to do sanitation, like with their teats and with the equipment. And I did lessons on it. And then we did 2 different ways. Like I would have them do written tests, but then we would turn around and get our milk tested and
Mm.
see if it was clean after we were milking ourselves because we were trying to either do raw milk or low temp pasteurization. So we had to be really clean. And so they got to see their tests both in writing and with the lab work that actually came back. Then we would learn what low temp pasteurization even does. And then we would learn that vinegar is a catalyst for getting milk to curd off so you can make cheese. And then we would discuss how whole fat foods are really good for your brain. And we're going through all these steps. And I realized that I was designing this really great multi level curriculum that both my 7-year olds could do and my high schoolers could do almost together because I would just assign it based on their age. Like, how thick is our cream line now that we switched to adding vitamin E on top of her feed and stuff like that? And I found the kids started researching and diving deeper themselves and having like a full family research, I don't know, deep dive together where suddenly I wasn't even teaching them. I do the lesson in the morning and they spent the rest of the afternoon watching YouTube videos and pulling out books and trying to find an answer themselves. And I was like, wow, I think there's a lot of people out there who have these questions too. And even for myself growing up on a farm and everything, I was like, there were so many questions that I didn't know have answers to or even know I was supposed to ask. And when the pandemic happened, we suddenly had a huge percentage of the urban populations and suburban populations moving rurally. One, to just kind of get away from all the hubbub, but also in hopes of being more self sufficient. And I said, you know what? I think I can help people by first off, I started my podcast, The Homestead Education, which was let me answer some of these questions that people don't know to ask. Because when you move to a new area, like sadly, for lack of better words, you're ignorant to how things go there because you just don't know. But if I could get some people to tune in and hear how rural traditions work and, learn how you actually can just start a garden with literally no money and that type of thing, that I could help someone. And through that, people started asking, like, well, what can we do to teach our kids? And that's when I realized that I had everything that they needed to teach their kids exactly what we were doing on our farm.
Wow. How long ago was that you started the journey?
See, it was 9 years ago.
And your husband's still with us?
My husband is still with us. 2 years ago, he was given a 100% clean bill of health. Yeah.
Because of the changes you guys have made to your diets, or what do you think was the help there?
It was a combination of a few things. So he was never a drinker, which is usually what people associate liver disease with. Not that we never drank, but he wasn't one of those guys that got a six pack every day when he got off work. He was like, "Hey, we're barbecuing a tri-tip on a sunny afternoon. Let me pick up a pack of like Sierra, some pale ale or something."
Mhm.
Like it wasn't that type of and so we're like, "Well, what is it then?" The only thing we can come up with is possibly from his time in Iraq. Because basically your liver, it's not exactly a filter, but it regenerates it like kinda lets itself get damaged to filter things out of your system, and then as long as you're not putting too much on it, it starts to rebuild.
Mm.
Unfortunately, for people who have cirrhosis, once that scarring happens, they don't really have anything to rebuild, and so they told us there wasn't that chance. Now whether he wasn't as bad as they thought he was or if we did have that full regeneration, but I've heard of a lot of people now who have been very, where he's at or very close to where they said he was and have seen the results with massive changes. And for us, it was the all natural diet. Um, and we stay away from artificial, we stay away from anything that's been processed. A huge mindset for us was switching back to like, full fat milks and things like that because we'd been told no fat, no fat, no fat. And, now we know that was just a payoff from the sugar company. Having some of these conversations with like my mom, who was born in the 50s, she's like, oh no, they've always told us low fat, fat free foods. And I was like, what goes into fat free foods? Sugar.
Mhm,
And then I've even shown her like the articles where they have like found out that the American Heart Association was basically paid off by the sugar companies
mhm.
and that there was only one study done on whether or not like animal fats are as bad for you as they say they are. And it was basically inconclusive.
It is interesting to hear about, like, I took a sensitivity test, oh gosh, it's probably been 5 years ago. I was working with a nutritional coach, and I was like, I'm struggling." I was, like, 30, and I was like, "I feel like I have arthritis already," which is in my family, and I was like, "Should I be having arthritis issues already?" Well, turns out maybe it could have turned into arthritis, but it was really inflammation based off of the foods I was eating, and when I took that food sensitivity test, like, I just took some hair and put it in a bag and shipped it off, and they gave me this, like, 30-page report, and I mean, all growing up, we had home cooked meals. We very rarely went out to eat when I was a kid. And we still, like my husband and I, we don't really go out to eat very often. Like, and being homeschooling and working from home, 3 meals a day, every day at home, unless it's like a special occasion or, just like happens to be timely to eat in town. And so it's not like I'm eating fast food every single day. However, you could eat a healthy food, but it be the wrong food for you, right? Like, for example, um, what was it? It was coconut. Everybody was, like, all on the rage of coconut water at one point, and they're like, "Drink all the coconut water, blah, 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 blah. Eat almonds for, like, a brain boost." Those are things that my body will not digest, right? And so it's like,
Yeah.
and there was different types of fruits, like oranges, right? Like, my body doesn't digest oranges very well. And so it's like, I have to get that
See?
vitamin from a different source. And so it's just like understanding you uniquely as a person and
Hmm.
understanding what you need. But it's like, that's the thing. I think as a society, we've all been conditioned to think, oh, here's the food pyramid, here's what you do. And we don't know any different because from the
Yep.
day we were born, we've had somebody making decisions for us, telling us yes, no, safe, unsafe, right, wrong, positive, negative. We've had somebody kind of like shaping that for us. And I'm not disagreeing with that because I think, I need to make decisions for my children because they just don't know. Right. But however, then you go into school, and then you go into work, and then, like, your whole life, you've got somebody telling you, and then all of a sudden, like, when I became an entrepreneur and when I started homeschooling, it's like, "Oh my gosh, I get to think for myself, but I don't know how." Right? Like, and then you have to, like,
Right.
the whole process, the unschooling, the unlearning how to be an employee, unlearning how to, do schoolwork versus at school versus at home, like, it's a whole thing, and so I think it's so fascinating to hear your husband's story and then just like, "Oh, okay, that's the fate. My doctor says this. I should trust
Hmm.
that that's what the thing is. Surely he would tell me if there was a chance, right? But you guys thought for yourself
Yep.
there and you made decisions based off of your intuition and what you knew to be true. And you did a little trial and error there. And then same thing with your schooling. And I loved when you said, like, this 8 hours of homeschooling is not working for us. This curriculum is not
Yeah.
working for us and you've made the decision to think for yourself. And I tell you what, It's empowering, but it is so scary.
You know what? It was one of these things where, like, I felt in my heart, like, I am doing the right thing. I know I am. And, even if it doesn't save his life, he was, like I said, he was at that point where he's like, whatever, I'm just gonna roll over and die. And I mean, he was going through massive depression, which is completely understandable.
Yeah.
But I have that gene that tells me there's nothing I can't do, which is my biggest attribute and my biggest, like, flaw as well.
Yeah.
um, and I mean, it doesn't matter if it's an intellectual thing or I decide I'm gonna go out there and build a barn by myself. Yeah. And I think the biggest one for me, like, I was having, like, also, like, massive, I don't even know what the word for it is, like, guilt and shame and, like, a little embarrassment, because like, we had our parents being like, "This isn't how you teach your kids," and, "Oh, I've never had time for that canning stuff. I never felt the need for it." And I'm like, "But I have a need for it. Why aren't you supporting me?" Then, like, my mom, she's always had really high cholesterol, so when we switched to cooking with all tallow, and I'm overweight, I'm not shy about that. I couldn't be like that influencer or something that would come online and be like, "We switched to cooking with all lard and we're doing wonderful." And they're like, "But you're still heavy. I don't understand." My
Mm.
cholesterol has dropped so much that my doctor was like, "You need to get it back up." And so, I mean, you can see, like, the proof in the pudding, but it was really it was a really hard time for me because I felt like I was bucking every system that I had grown up in and that, everybody else expected me to do, but I knew it was the right choice, and I felt so much, like, heaviness from that, and somebody said to me, "Don't take criticism from someone you wouldn't go to for advice." And that changed my whole life. That's when I embraced every bit of what we were doing because I realized that that can go across so many avenues. I mean, I met a mom one time who said, "I'm raising 5 boys, and I have this wonderful mother-in-law who raised 5 wonderful men, and she homeschooled them, and I'm homeschooling mine, but we have difference of opinions on whether or not they should have electronics and, all these different things, and we really butt heads on it." She's like, "But I really respect her as a mother, like, what do I—" And I said, "You wouldn't go to her on advice for something like electronics because she did not raise her children with electronics, it wasn't even an option.
Mhm.
And so, she didn't live the life that you're living right now." And that's like, you can go to her for advice on everything, but don't take her criticism on something that she has never experienced.
Oh, that's so good. The ability to trust in yourself and know where to get advice and like you said, kind of just put aside what you've been trained your whole life and to be able to independently think on your own, I just think is so it's powerful. It's liberating, but it is definitely scary.
It's scary and it's liberating. I mean, I still have the moments where I'm scared, but the liberating feeling that I have now, like, my husband told me that I should write a book called "I Give You Permission."
Yeah. Oh
Like,
gosh.
just all those, like, things that, like, you carry on yourself and that you stress about, and you're constantly worried that somebody is gonna have a problem with what you do. If you know in your heart of hearts that it's the right thing for you or your family, if you've done your research, just because, someone, like, for example, like with my parents or my mom, my dad passed away a few years ago, but, she'll say things like, "Well, they always told us." Well, they gave you one story
Yeah.
because you didn't have the option to find that information yourself unless you wanted to go sit at the library for hours on end. Like, now I literally walk around with the library in my hands.
We did a unit study from Gather Round, which is a homeschool
Mm,
curriculum company. We did
mhm.
surviving off plan and we did farming and food. And in the farming and food curriculum, they were talking about how like back in like the settler days when we were moving west, like they only knew how to build homesteads and things to consider based off of the conversations they had with other people who had just traveled there or their neighbors of like, hey, this is the right type of wood to build your house with. Hey, this is when it starts
Yeah.
to frost in this neck of the woods. Hey, don't eat those berries. Right? Because so and so died
Right?
when they ate those berries. Like, we only know because of the storytelling. And I feel like in agriculture, it's so similar. It's like we only trust like our inner circle of other farmers, like somebody outside of the
Mhm.
industry. What do they know about this? Right. So I feel like that's been passed down and kind of like been the way of doing things. However, like you said, literature didn't exist in that same fashion back then.
Mhm.
And now we have so many resources and so many ways of doing things that it's like, try it. And I've used this
Mhm.
example a few times. I think I've shared this on the podcast, but I have this cookie sheet or like a baking sheet, and it's got a little bit of a ledge on it. And so it like goes down and then comes back up, and then here's the flat part. So it's kind of like a drip tray, if you will, around the edge. And it's this
Mhm.
gigantic one. And, it's my favorite cooking sheet because it's also got, like, little ridges. Anyway, long story short, I've always used it where it's flat and then it's got a little dip on the outside. So, like I said, if I was
I think I
cooking,
have, like, a similar one, yeah.
yeah, stuff can drip down in there. Well, one day, I flipped it over because I was making like french fries or something. And every time I've used that sheet to cook fries on before, there would be some french fries that would fall down in the little like crevice.
Mm.
And that really annoyed me. So I flipped the cookie sheet over so it was a ledge that went up. So all the food was sunk down. There was no falling in. And my husband's like, you used the cookie sheet upside down. That's not the way that goes. Like, like, baffled that was like, "That's not the way that that cookie sheet's been used," and I'm like, "There's no, like the cops aren't gonna show up because I flipped the cookie
Right?
sheet upside down and used it a different way, but that's the way that we use the cookie sheet, right?" And it's like something as
Right? I
simple
always say there's no Pinterest police.
Oh my god, yeah. It's like something as simple as that. I felt like I was breaking so many rules. And so now, like, every time I think about, "Oh, this is the way this is used," it's like, this morning I did the same thing. We have this, extension cord going from one of our buildings to out by where our dog kennel is, and there's, like, a heated,
Mhm.
thing you can put inside the dog kennel because it was getting down to like single digits below over the winter. And so we had a little heater in our doghouse. And so we had this bucket on top of where the extension cord plugged into the heater. And so we had the bucket and then like a brick on top of it. So like, people wouldn't, I don't know, whatever. Anyway, it's been out here in the
Yeah.
yard for so long, and then the dog gets wrapped up in it when he's out on the zip line and, like, will get caught up in it, and this morning, I was like, "Why don't we pick that up and move it closer to the building so he doesn't keep tripping over it?" Because
What do you know?
that's where dad put it, so that's where we leave it, and I picked it up and I put it closer to the building, he can't trip over it now, and it's like, I felt like I was breaking the law because it's like, well, that's where dad put it, so there must have been a good reason for it, and it's like, well, it's not working there because he keeps getting wrapped around it, so let's pick it up and we move it, right? And so it's just like silly stuff like that, it's like, we can do that, you can give yourself permission to flip the cookie sheet over.
Right?
Crazy concept, right? I've absolutely loved hearing one, your husband's story of just kind of like overcoming what we thought was the end, right? Like you guys were
Yeah.
preparing, like I'm enjoying the last year I have with you too. Now it's 9 years later, which is
Mhm.
like glory to God on that because what a blessing.
He runs our farm, he teaches at our homeschool co-op, he's our local fire chief.
Wow. That's awesome. That's
Mhm, and
amazing.
he is thriving.
Well, yeah, and you guys have then seen a need not only in your family, right? Because again, you weren't originally planning on homeschooling, and then it's like, turns out this is what we
No.
and based off of the changes in our lives, like we're going to pivot, and it's okay if it looks differently than what we planned. It looks differently than what people think we ought to be doing, but you did that. And then what I love so much from my entrepreneurial heart here is that you were able to monetize these very real, maybe you weren't like super passionate about writing curriculum, but you saw a need for your family. You created a solution, and now you're sharing that with other families that you know have a need for that too. And I just like, I think that that's a really cool lesson to learn here around how you can see a need in your family, but then you can make an impact in other people's family while also earning an income.
I can be home with the kids, I travel with the kids, and, like, they go to all these conferences with me. My daughter has been doing conferences with me since she was 12, and she pretty much runs the logistics and ordering and shipping and everything for every event we do.
And what an awesome lesson. That's a homeschool lesson, but it's also real life,
Right?
you know? Yeah.
Mhm. It
Oh.
absolutely is, and I think what the really beautiful thing for me is sometimes I'll tell people, like, how many books we've sold and that type of thing, and they're like, "Oh, that's so awesome for you," and I'm like, Yeah, it's paid our bills, it's been wonderful, it's been a great it's been a wonderful ride, like, we've been having a lot of fun with it, traveling and getting to meet so many wonderful people, but it is so exciting to me that so many people want to take this path for their children and for their families, that they're, no matter what this works for is no matter what side of the fence you're on, if you're big on commercial agriculture, you're all farm to table, or if you live in the city or you live in the country or whatever it is, my goal is just to teach people skills
Mhm.
and to make them feel confident in what they're able to do, especially in the realm of food, which is society's most driving force and has been for, thousands of years. And if we lose those skills, what happens to society over the next few generations?
Will you share a little bit about the curriculum, where people can purchase it, and also just to make sure people know, like, this isn't just for homeschooling families. Like, there's stuff
No.
in there that I, as somebody who's been in agriculture, I have a degree in agriculture business economics. There's stuff within these books that I'm like, this is just good for me to know as an adult, and also could be used as a
Mhm.
supplement um, curriculum atop of somebody going to a public school as well. So, will you share some more details around what all you guys have, how they can find it, any other things around the curriculum?
Homestead science is a combination of agriculture science, consumer slash home economic science. And it teaches how to build on the land, how to start gardens, how to raise animals, and then how to cook the food and preserve the food, and hunting and fishing, herbalism, business. I mean, it covers a little bit of everything at every level. So I have stuff for preschool all the way through high schoolers. I'm going to be totally honest with you. I think probably 20-25% of my high school curriculum that I sell is to adults who just want to learn it themselves. And I think that the reason adults really love it is I wrote it in a very traditional format, which is something that they are used to seeing in the way that we were taught to learn, which is you read a lesson and then you have like a workbook pages and projects that you do. My high school science, it actually covers state agriculture or sorry, national agriculture standards. The only thing it doesn't include is the supervised agriculture education because I just can't make sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing. But even in place of that kind of leadership piece, I have quality of character built in, which really encourages the kids to help in their community, to be the ones who make the phone calls when they need to call the USDA office or whatever needs to happen. Like really pushing kids outside of their comfort zones to kind of meet that leadership piece of agriculture education while also just showing them how food and agriculture fits into their everyday lives. That it's not just something that is a far-reaching thing that just shows up in the grocery store, it's something that you have complete control over, while getting all of your science at the same time, which is what more could you want? And like I said, like you were saying, it could be for anyone, whether you have a high schooler that's maybe, I just want to be a farmer. And well, great. Like, let's do this in the afternoons. And maybe that'll help your science and math make more sense for you at school because you're doing it more hands on. The stuff for the little learners, the grade school stuff, I have so many families that use that over the summer, or grandparents that do it as, when you come see grandma for the weekend, we, work through parts of this together. It's been really fun to see how people use it, like in co-ops and private schools and charter schools, and because it's just this really great framework that has all the information, but that you can interpret it to use it how you need it for your homestead, your school, whatever makes sense to you. Since then, we have mini units on survivalism. I have a homestead economics and business, which I really love that one because there is a case study that works through the whole thing where these young kids get out of college, they come back to the family farm that's a very traditional commercial farm. The farm is struggling, and so they start working through different pieces of the farm and running like all the numbers, and they learn their supply and demand and their diminishing returns and all that stuff through deciding, should we keep this part of the commercial farm or should we switch to like a direct to consumer type model. And at the end of it, it's not just a, oh, you should go all homesteading. It's how you can blend that all together and what those numbers look like at the end. It's pretty fun.
Ooh, that's
I also have started yeah, and that's a high school level economics course. It's a lot of fun. I really enjoy doing it, and I think it really pushes kids outside of their comfort zone again, because I really suggest books that would never probably go across a kid's path in a regular, school, like Joel Salatin books, or, what's his name? Poland, like The Omnivore's Dilemma, Farmers versus Foodies, which was written by I think he was like the head of agriculture during Trump's first term or something. Like just these books that, your average high school student is not going to even, it's not even going to be on their radar. And honestly, even as an ag major, a lot of these books never came across my radar. So it encourages a lot of that. I have seasonal activity books for kids. I have the agricultural history of all of the holidays, which just looks at where we built the traditions that we did and how that works into everyday agriculture all the way up to modern times, like, how the Christmas tree industry is one of the
mhm.
ones that we covered in that. And I am working on homestead history. It's been about a 2-year process of, just really covering US food and agriculture and how the like sociology and history of it and how we kind of got to where we're at today.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, you're definitely on my list of curriculum to buy and, to try out, and I'm so proud of you. Is that okay to say? I'm just
Thank
like
you. Yeah.
I mean, I am. I anytime I see somebody who just takes initiative, like that's just it's rare
Mhm.
to see somebody
It
taking an
is. Yeah.
initiative, and even if it's not like, and that's something I've struggled with. It's like, oh, it's got to bring you joy, and it's gotta be something you're passionate about, and it's like, well, not always. Sometimes it's great if that happens, but sometimes it's like, we
Mhm.
also just need to solve a need sometimes, and sometimes it is about feeding our families, and it is about just trying to survive and get through. It's bonus points when it's also something that you're good at, and it's also amazing when it's something that does light you on fire and gives you that purpose, and so
Yes.
I'm just super impressed, super proud, and,
Oh.
if somebody wants to purchase a curriculum or talk with you more or listen to your podcast,
Mhm.
where can they find you?
You can find everything at thehomesteadeducation.com. So that's like the Homestead Education. That's where you can find my social media. That's where you can find my podcast, where you can purchase curriculum, where you can, reach out to me personally. Or I love helping people decide what they can do on their farms and their like small businesses on their farms. I, I love talking about what I do. I love teaching other people about what I do. They say everybody has a calling, and I didn't realize that mine was teaching because I'm not really like a classroom teacher type of person. But I realized that I really love sharing, and because I think there's nothing I can't do, I think there's nothing that no one else can't do.
Yeah. Ugh. I love that so much. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story and your journey to getting to where you are today. I think it's just super inspiring. So I just appreciate you taking the time to come on the AgriMinds podcast.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It was a blast.